Welcome to the historic John Delahow campus. We are in our 225th year of existence here on this beautiful property. I often say it's the best kept secret in South Carolina, but we don't want it to be a secret any longer. Our new mission is the Governor's School for Agriculture. We began in August of 2020. We could not have picked a better time in the middle of the pandemic to start a residential high school, but we have, in my opinion, have been very successful in our only 3 years of existence. Our graduation is next Friday. I'm sad to see our seniors moving out yesterday. They were our first group that began with us in 10th grade in August of 2020. It's my honor and privilege to have the Eubanks family here today. Martin was a dear friend of mine in my former position with Clemson. I also ran the state Young Farmer program, and Martin was a very close friend to me during that time, and also to our young farmers across South Carolina. Our students will benefit greatly from the Eubanks Farm. One of our major goals is to become 50% self-sustainable in our cafeteria, and so we're already beginning the process of planting produce and consuming produce, beef and pork in our cafeteria, so this will help tremendously. And we could not have done this today without Duke Energy. I know we have some representatives from Duke here today. The Advocates for Ag and the Department of Agriculture and many other donors across the nation. I'm honored just to be a small part in honoring the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Martin Eubanks. I'd like to turn it over to Honorable Commissioner Weathers.
Good morning. A lot of times when we give remarks, staff will say, "Do you need anything prepared?" Not today. It's a real privilege to be doing what we're doing today. Just yesterday at our staff luncheon, appreciation luncheon, I reminded those on staff now that they have some predecessors that really laid down a foundation of what the culture of the Department of Agriculture is made up of. And I can't think of anyone who exemplified that more than Martin Eubanks. So in honor of Martin, it didn't matter if it was going to be 35 degrees, I got no socks on today. So that's my first tip of the hat to Martin. The next one is we're going to have a good time, because the number of times that Martin and I had a project, trip, discussion, the number of times that were not fun to do, and we found some humor in it, you can count on one hand. We were talking about in a few weeks we go over to Montgomery, Alabama for a meeting. And the last time I was in Montgomery, the highlight of my trip to Montgomery was Martin taking me out and showing me Hank Williams' grave, where his great-grandfather, carved Hank Williams' hat. And so again, we had a toast to Hank and to Montgomery. So things like that just exemplified working with Martin. Finally, somewhere toward his career, he ended up, he said, "Hey, boss, I got 2 jobs, but I'm only getting 1 salary." I said, "I know, you're a great deal." But Martin made his way up through the marketing department to where he led it, and then also took on other responsibilities and did it with just the greatest attitude. Told someone the other day, of course, naturally, things change over time. A younger staff, more specialized, if you will, in how we do things. And I told someone I gave them a great compliment that they were in the same category as Martin Eubanks in terms of farmer interface and getting out with farmers, earning the trust of farmers on behalf of what we were doing in the Department of Agriculture. So for all of Martin's attributes, the farming community trusted him. Again, like all of us, enjoyed the company that he brought, but again, that trust for the things we were doing. Because when we came on, however many years I've been there, quite a few, I remember Martin saying, "Hey, boss man, before you came on and got us some money, our marketing efforts were $50 in our good looks." And I said, "Martin, I can see why we hadn't gotten very far looking at you." But anyway, so under his guidance, we took a look at what they were doing in New Jersey. I think Martin and Ansley Turnblad went up to take a look at their program, and that really was the foundation for certified SE grown, which has led the way for some of the other things that we've done in the department, which to a great extent I think has had a monumental impact on our industry. And then moved toward the end 7, 8 years ago when we had the floods. Remember the 2 years in a row we had the flood of a century? Well, we had 2 of them back to back. So we were given $40 million by the General Assembly to help farmers. So Martin, everyone said, well, you've got to head up the committee. I said, no, don't. I assigned Martin that responsibility. And about a couple of months later, a couple of farmers said, well, I'm glad you didn't do it and let Martin do it. He and I were always working together, but he brought everybody together, brought those perspectives together. And that program, we dispersed $36 million to 1,200 farmers, and we did it in 5 months' time, start to finish, which still pretty good for government work. But that's the way we collectively, and again, particularly Martin leading that effort, were able to do things. So many of the staff people here, I know they're remembering their own stories of how he mentored so many with just the right touch between pat on the back or a finger in the face, maybe sometime like, let's straighten that out just a little bit, which made it all so very productive, enjoyable, all the positive adjectives. So move forward to Aaron Wood. What year did I come up here and speak to your dad's conservation group? It was the low point. I'll call it the low point of John De La Hal's operation. And I said, man, this thing needs something going on. And then the study committee, the advisory committee came and talked to us about what should they do. And I said, you need to be self-sustaining with the amount of property you have out there. We talked about timber. We talked about fruit and vegetables, growing high-value crops to help support the operation. And lo and behold, look what we have behind us. The Eubanks Farm, able to sort of meet that part of it, but to carry on Martin's memory and his legacy in especially the fruit and vegetable sector of agriculture, this is so appropriate. That's why it's been a privilege to have a small part in raising some of the money to pay for this operation, to get it started, so that we can all, when we're up here, just take a glance over here and see what's going on, and we know what that'll do. That'll just bring back so many fond memories of our dear friend. So again, from being able to serve as commissioner, has had a lot of privileges, and I count working with Martin and having Martin as a friend is one of the highest privileges of the job that I've had. With that, I want to ask John Martin Eubanks to come up and make comments on behalf of the family.
Good morning, y'all. I'm John Martin Eubanks. Thank you, Commissioner, for those kind words. And on behalf of the family, I just want to say thank y'all so very much to make this dream a reality. A couple years ago when this idea of the Eubanks Farm came up, it was very exciting, but we didn't really exactly know how we were going to get there. So now that we're here, it's a dream come true, and we're just want to say thank y'all from the bottom of our hearts to the Department of Agriculture, Hugh Weathers, and your team. Everybody who's been able to make this happen, as well as the SC Advocates Group, who's been able to raise the money and donations and what have you, and as well as just the John De La Hal Governor's School of Ag to help put a part of Dad here at this school to help with future generations of farmers, which is I really think would mean the most to Dad. As we started thinking as a family just what this would mean to Dad, I think it's so personal to him, because growing up, I just remember him as being a coach, whether that's in life or baseball, or just hearing from colleagues of his at the Department of Ag of a mentor, how much of a mentor and a coach he was for them. So I think that's encapsulated now with the Eubanks Farm. There's a kind of a words of wisdom advice that he always kind of gave to me growing up. It said, son, whatever you're doing, whether it's sports or life or a career, if you really want to master it and be good at it, you got to start from the ground up. And I think that's so cool. It means so much now with the Eubanks Farm. For the men and women of ag that will be our future, this is an example that they can start from the ground up and learn this industry from the ground up. So to me, that it just comes full circle, and I think it's totally awesome. And can't thank y'all enough. This is just a great day. And again, it was an idea on paper, and now that we see it's come to fruition, it just means that much more. And I know this is a huge honor. It's very humbling for the family, but I think for Dad and his career in agriculture, from his accolades or achievements, I think this is the pinnacle, to be honest with you. So this is totally cool, and we just want to thank y'all so very much. We're happy to be here. And I'm going to turn it over to Ronnie Summers now. Thank y'all.
Good morning. It's amazing how words come out, and John Martin, you actually set me up real well. Things come in full circle. I had the pleasure, through the Advocates of Agriculture and several roles I played over the last 40 years, of having contact with Martin. And now John Martin and I are serving on the CAFL's alumni board at Clemson, and that's a privilege in and of itself. But Martin and I found out that we had so many things in common. I grew up in the same area as Hugh, Bowman Branchville, and we knew the Wiggins family and Jeff and so forth, so we were able to connect on that. We both love outdoors. We have a passion for farming, so we just connected so well. The Advocates for Agriculture, I'm not sure how many people really understand our organization, but another benefit to Commissioner Weathers, Hugh Weathers, he helped create this group back in 2005. And at the time, the South Carolina Certified Grown campaign was taking place, and a lot of questions surrounded, how about private money coming from the private sector? So literally a vision of his was to set up an entity, the South Carolina Advocates for Agriculture, to utilize contributions from the private sector to support various tasks, if you will. And we've always been about promoting agriculture, the markets of agriculture. That's where we've been focused. But in 2015, there was a thing called the flood, right? And we started reaching out and doing various things that were a little different, still supporting agriculture. Needless to say, in the spring of 21, we were all kind of heartbroken as to what had happened, and we all wanted to do something. Commissioner Weathers and his team came to the Advocates for Agriculture. We're a 501c3, and said, we want to do something for Martin Eubanks. So well deserved, a privilege to be able to do it. What do we do? And this idea that we're talking about today and we're having this ceremony about came to fruition. It took us a little while, and I got to say, with our organization, we've raised over $1.5 million. We just had a board meeting for various things, and literally just quickly our group went to work. Of that $1.5 million, I would say 90% of those monies we have to contribute to the efforts of Hugh Weathers, okay? But this is one where we all came together and everybody shared in the task. And we were able to bring some real key players to the table to donate. And so through that effort, we've generated, and my numbers have to change this morning because we literally got some more funds this morning since I walked onto this section of John D. LaHowe. We've got now 17 sponsored donors. We've got $56,550 that will go toward the Eubanks Farm, okay? And, you know, that can just go so far. And I mean, our relationship with TK and his staff and talking about what we can accomplish, we just see great things from the Eubanks Farm, okay? So at this time, what I want to do is we want to acknowledge all of our donors, all right? And we're going to ask, if you would, as I call out the donors, anyone that's here that represents an entity, please, all of you stand. Please remain standing. We'll hold our applause to everyone who's standing. But we want to recognize the group that helped raise this $56,550, okay? We'll start with Bennett Evers. Bennett Evers, might not be here. Cameron Ferguson. Cameron. Dominion Energy Charitable Foundation. Anyone from Dominion? And they were a major donor. Duke Energy Foundation. Oh, we got some folks here, I think, from Duke. Yeah. And I'm just going to plug Duke a little bit. Duke gave towards the farm and some additional funds to John D. LaHowe. Thank you, Duke. The Eastern Produce Council, Gary Dwayne Rainey, John Martin, Lorraine Harris, Michael and Cynthia Baker, Norma Wart, hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, Randy Ulmer, he's down in my part of the world, South Carolina Advocates for Agriculture, we contributed directly from our treasury, the South Carolina Watermelon Association, Southeast Produce Council, okay, Titan Farms, Lori Ann, yeah, and Jason, okay, Virginia and Jean Kelly, and Watsonia Farm. Thank you so much. Let's give these folks a hand. Again, y'all, we've done something we can be proud of, right, TK? And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Commissioner Weathers to initiate some photos and so forth.
All right, it is my privilege to invite the Eubanks family up, and we are going to do an unveiling. It's a good thing we have tall members of the family because reach up and unveil. So, come on over here. It doesn't work. All right, here we go.
Just kind of, if you can, kind of express to me what this means to the Eubanks family to have this farm represented here.
Yeah, no, it's a huge honor. It's come full circle now as Dad spent his life's work in agriculture, the produce industry specifically, the majority of his career. So this is just a huge honor to have his legacy live on here and help coach and train future farming generations to come. So this is just a very neat and humbling honor. I think, as I've mentioned before, Dad just loved to coach and educate and mentor those. And you're only as good as your next generation, and I know that he would be honored just to be able to coach, train, and have his legacy here to have that next generation. New innovation, everything else that needs to be changing. We all have to evolve, and that's what this Eubanks Farm is all about, the next generation and how we can improve it and get to that next spot.